All right, so this is going to be a couple of money lessons that I wish I knew earlier in life. For context, I'm close to my 30s, and I got a decent amount of net worth. I'm not going to give you guys the exact amount, but I'm doing okay for myself. I don't want to say I'm doing well, but I'm doing okay. But yeah, these are just things that I've slowly been learning, slowly been researching about, trying to put together a list of things that I'm assuming you're 22, maybe 25, something like that. You're like in your low 20s. Maybe you just started working. You've been working for a couple of years and you're just like, yeah, I've been accumulating money. What the hell do I do with it now, right? Maybe you're living at home. Maybe you don't have many expenses. Maybe you have zero debt for, some miraculous reason your parents are well off or whatever. And this video is for those of you who are out there like this. Maybe you are just like, what do I do with this extra money? Or how do I make more money? How do I invest in things? And so, yeah, this is going to be kind of not a beginner tutorial, but kind of like an advanced / intermediate. These are some tips that hopefully, can help you out. So if you enjoy at any point, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you're new, let's jump into the first point here. Number one, it's easier to save $200 or any amount of dollars, $100, whatever, than to earn it, right? And so this is actually something my boss told me recently. I floated the idea of asking for a raise, which, by the way, I don't really recommend. I think that if you're going to do it, either just straight up ask or just don't ask. Don't kind of flirt with the idea or anything. That's kind of what I did. And I'm kind of regretting it a little bit. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future video, but as it is right now, like I said, or like he said, basically, it's easier to save a little bit than to earn a little bit. And basically what he means is that if you wanted, let's say 10K more a year, which is a pretty substantial raise, right? Even if you're making $100,000 a year, which is pretty high, I don't think many people are clicking on finance videos if they're making that much money a year. But let's say you are, right? Even at the most, you're making, 100K and you're hitting a 10% annual bump, which is again, very high. That's still only 10K bump a year, which after taxes and after breaking it down, you're essentially earning, I think roughly, it depends on what state, of course, but you're roughly earning between $400 to $600 more per month, or maybe per paycheck if it's biweekly. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm going to say it's by month, which means you're earning $200 to $300 more per paycheck. And if that's the case, that might sound great. Like, oh man, I'm getting 10K more than I was last year. Unfortunately, that's at most probably $300 to $400 a month more per paycheck, which is not much in the grand scheme of things. That goes by in the blink of an eye, right? A doctor's appointment, you fall or something like that, maybe a dentist checkup that your copay isn't really sponsored or anything like that. Maybe you got to go on an emergency flight to see your relatives who are, in another country or something like that. Boom, $300 gone out of your bank account. It goes by super quick. Maybe you want to take your girl out for some nice Korean barbecue or, an all you can eat buffet for sushi, something like that. Boom, just gone. And what I'm trying to say here is it's way easier to just cut on, a little bit of bougie spending. Maybe you can negotiate your car insurance. Maybe you can negotiate your Wi-Fi, right? Maybe you can cut on a less expensive gym membership. Maybe you don't need Hulu, Netflix, and Spotify and Peacock. Maybe you can cut something there. Maybe you don't need to eat out 3 times a week. Maybe you cut it down to 1 or 2, Basically what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to get at is that it's easier to save that than to earn that. And I think a lot of people, and I fell into this trap too, of just feeling like I need to earn more, I'm underpaid right now. I type in my salary on Google, my location, and boom, they're making 10, 20, 30K more than I am. What the heck, man? I gotta get a raise. Even at the best case scenario. And, if you're asking for a raise and they're like, yeah, we'll give you 20K more, chances are that place is either a sinking ship or your work-life balance is going to be turned upside down. You are probably going to be working weekends, nights, whatever. If they're willing to pay you 20K more and your life's not going to change, I'd be very, very shocked. And so essentially what I'm trying to say, just focus on trying to save more than investing, because it's not easy to earn more. Of course you can try side hustle and things like that, like YouTube or streaming, whatever, make a digital product. But again, it's way easier to save than to earn. If it was easy to earn, a lot more people would be millionaires, right? Number 2, I spent a lot of time on that one, so I apologize for that. Learn to rewire your brain when it comes to familial money habits. I'm talking about family. A lot of people, their families will say oh, like you need to go to college. Oh, it's like, you know, $200,000, like doesn't matter. You need to go. They'll say things like, you know, oh, like never get Coke because at a restaurant, only get water, you know, because every dollar counts, something like that. Live how you need to live, right? If you need that Coke because it's just like a long day, you know it's bad for you, you know it's extra money, but you need that and it's going to make your mood feel better. Don't deprive yourself of that just to save $3 or just to save 200 calories. Like, don't deprive yourself, because it's not going to matter in the long run. I'm not encouraging people to just drink Coke all day, to drink Sprite all day, lemonade. Of course, I think that you should stay away from sugar, and sugar is just kind of like a temporary fix or a temporary jolt. I do think that there's other, you know, better things to invest your time and you know, calories in, I guess. But what I'm trying to say is to rewire your brain. You know, your family, your friends, what you've been taught growing up is not always right. You know, if you have old parents like mine, many of them grew up in a time that is nowhere near what we're growing up in. You know, they didn't have an S&P 500 to invest in. They didn't have the internet to make money from home in. And so a lot of the advice they're going to tell you is, you know, stay at your job. You should be lucky to have a job and just stay there for like 40 years. And then hopefully they have a pension and hopefully they set you up and then you just die and go away. Like, a lot of people are not satisfied, you know, and with the internet, with the evolution of how, you know, entrepreneurship and things like that are evolving, a lot of people, like young people, Gen Z, millennials, they're not satisfied with it. And, you know, if that's you, if you find yourself relating to what I just said, I don't know, I think you need to, you need to work on it. You need to figure out how to rewire your brain. I think it's very important. Let's get into number 3, though. Number 3 is actually going to be to invest in yourself. A lot of people are going to start opening an S&P 500, you know, putting money into VU or QQQM, things like that. They're going to buy Apple, they're going to buy Tesla stock, things like that. I think you need to invest in yourself first. I'm not saying to buy every single course, buy every single, you know, I don't know, book and buy a course, buy a lottery ticket, nothing like that. But hey, if you're overweight, invest in a gym membership, you know, before dumping money into investments, before dumping money into rent or food and things like that. You know, work on yourself first, not just mentally. You know, obviously, like it's probably going to behoove you to like work on some social skills, maybe take a class, maybe take some business classes if you're into that. If you're into entrepreneurship, you know, like trying to learn. I'm not saying buy people's courses on YouTube. I think that's, you know, somewhat shady. It depends. I think if they're a proven professional, maybe consider it. But I think for the most part, a lot of these guys here on like YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that, they're just here to make money. They don't really care about your growth. They don't really care about helping you. You know, they teach courses on how to get rich by getting rich themselves by teaching courses, you know, just put it that way. Anyway, invest in yourself. The best way is to start, you know, get a gym membership, figure out a diet, you know, work with a nutritionist, you know, as far as like business goes, learn about different certificates. What certificate can you like, just Google it right now. Like, what certificate can I get for my current position that will get me a promotion in a year, that will get me a raise in 2 years, like whatever, right? Like that will get me to my goal. Think about your actual like short-term and long-term goals. I know you got them, you know, I know it's not easy to think about. Nobody wakes up as like, oh, hey, in 5 years, I want to make this much money doing this at this job. Nobody thinks like that. That's why you need to sit down with yourself and do it. And, you know, if you're not satisfied with your current position, you just feel like you're running on like a hamster wheel when it comes to your 9 to 5, grow out of it, you know, get out of it. And the only way to do that is by investing in yourself. Number 4 is something that I kind of touched on earlier, but it's be careful who you take financial advice from. And yes, that includes me. I don't think I'm a financial guru here. I don't think, you know, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not Jeff Bezos. I didn't invent 5 million companies and make $1 million a month each from them, you know, but be careful who you take advice from. Some people, again, like I said, they're out here to make a quick buck. They'll tell you they're millionaires. They'll tell you they're this, they're that. You know, you Google them, no net worth, or you follow their tips and then you see in the comment section, like, boom, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy's here to make views, to get views, to make money, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't really care about the craft. And not a lot of people do care about the craft. So that's why you got to be careful. But I do believe that there are good people out there who are willing to help. I think that guy, Ramit Sehi, for instance, for finance, I will teach you to be rich. I think that guy, I don't think he's like completely clean in terms of like, oh yeah, I'm out here just trying to help people. No, of course, I think he's trying to make money as well. But I think that the tips he provides, they do seem genuine. They do seem honest. And I think that a lot of the things he says are things I agree with. You know, some people will come out here and literally say like, oh, don't talk to your family until you're a millionaire, because if you wanted it, you would do that. Like, is that the kind of life you want to live, where you just don't talk to anybody and you just grind for money, and then what? You become a millionaire, you become a billionaire, and then you have no friends, you have no family because they all left you. Is that worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, just use your head a little bit, right? So some of these dumb people out here, you know, and the saddest part is like, I used to like drink that Kool-Aid. I used to be like, yeah, they're right. You know, this guy's a millionaire. Maybe he didn't talk to his family. Maybe he just, you know, worked all day and all night and, you know, never worried about getting married, never worried about having friends. No, that's not the kind of life I want to live. Congrats if that works for you. I don't want to live like that. I want to live so that I enjoy my life today and I enjoy my life tomorrow. I don't want to suffer for 20 years and then become a millionaire at 40, but have no energy, no kids, no wife. Like, no, that's not the kind of life I want to live. So if, you know, money is the most important thing to you, maybe you should live like that. I can't recommend that as a person, as a Christian. Yeah, I can't recommend you do that, but you know, just be careful who you take your advice from. Number 5 is actually something kind of interesting. Change your idea from I can't buy that to how can I buy that? It's really easy to just get lost in the mix of like, oh man, this jacket's $300. I can't buy it this month. Like maybe next time. No, change your mentality to how can I buy this? I know this jacket's overpriced, but I really want it. How can I get there? And this is usually where the ideas for, you know, things like side hustles come in, and things like asking for raises, asking for promotions. You know, maybe you try to, I don't know, just figure out something. Maybe you're making a product. Maybe you're making a website. Maybe you're doing YouTube, doing TikTok, doing Twitch, doing consult calls. Maybe you're, I don't know, shoveling snow for people, mowing lawn for people. Like you'll figure it out. How can I make that extra money to get the thing that I want, versus just living in a life where it's like, oh, hey, I can't get what I want again. Like, wow, that sucks for me. I personally can't get on board with that. That's something that I've been learning and thinking about. And the last thing that I want to touch on here is negotiation. It's in every part of life. It's not just in your job interviews. It's not just in salary. It's everything. You can negotiate your phone bill. You can negotiate your internet bill, your healthcare to a degree, you know, like even like with your girlfriend, with your wife, right? Your boyfriend, whatever, you can negotiate. It's out there. The opportunities are out there. You have to ask for it and you have to go for it. Nobody's going to hand you things on a silver platter and be like, hey, here you go. You know, you asked for it and I want to deliver because you're a nice guy. No, people don't do that. So anyway, man, hopefully that's it. I appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing. Leave a comment in the comment section if you resonated, if you learned anything, if you see all the way through. Just say thanks for this, learned a lot. I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe if you're new, and have a great night. Peace.